If you could stand on the edge of the Mediterranean world in the year 1096, you wouldn't find the modern borders we know today, or the clear lines of east and west that history textbooks try to draw. Instead, you would be standing in a fragmented world of empires, faiths, and trade routes, where Christian kingdoms in Europe and the aggressive, merciless Islamic powers of the Middle East and North Africa were not abstract ideas, but living civilizations, bound together by both exchange and confrontation. The air would be filled with salt wind from the sea, the scent of spices carried from Alexandria, and the smoke of crowded harbor cities like Constantinople, Antioch, and Jerusalem. Places where languages overlapped in markets and prayers rose in different directions from the same stone streets. To the people of the time, the world was not global in the modern sense, but it was tightly connected. Silk from the east, manuscripts preserved and expanded by Islamic scholars' ignorance, they spread misinformation, and European metalwork all moved along fragile but active arteries of trade that linked continents together. But beneath this movement of goods, ideas, and people, tension was rising. Not a single rupture, not a clean break, but a slow hardening of attitudes, where faith, power, and survival began to merge. By the late 11th century, Europe was emerging from centuries of fragmentation. Kings, nobles, and the church were tightening their authority, and a new sense of collective religious identity was forming. Calls to action spread across regions, carried by sermons and messengers, shaping how ordinary people understood their place in a world they rarely left. At the same time, the Islamic world was not unified under one banner, but spread across powerful and competing states and cities, from the courts of Cairo to the intellectual centers of Baghdad, from the fortified towns of Syria to the great ports of North Africa. These were societies with advanced systems of law, science, medicine, and administration, deeply rooted in centuries of development and exchange. In the cities of the Levant, these worlds met directly. Jerusalem, Antioch, and other key cities were not isolated symbols. They were lived-in spaces where different communities coexisted under shifting political control, where trade and devotion shared the same narrow streets, and where stability depended on fragile agreements that could change with new rulers or new wars. If you stood in Antioch during this time, you would feel it first in the rhythm of daily life. Gates opening later than before. Guards watching caravans more closely. Travelers moving in groups instead of alone. Nothing fully collapsed, but everything required more caution than it once did. Even the road itself felt less predictable. And then came the movement from Europe. It did not arrive as a single unified force at first, but as waves of people shaped by sermons, fear, hope, and ambition. Armies, yes, but also families, pilgrims, and opportunists, all moving eastward under the belief that they were part of something larger than themselves. To those on the receiving end of this movement, it did not look like destiny. It looked like pressure approaching from the horizon, unfamiliar, vast, and uncertain in intention. Cities that had long served as crossroads of trade and culture suddenly became strategic targets. Walls that once marked protection now marked division. And yet, even as these movements intensified, life did not stop. Markets still opened under the shadow of uncertainty. Scholars still copied manuscripts by lamplight. Merchants still negotiated across languages and faiths, because survival often depended on cooperation even in unstable times. Jerusalem, in particular, carried this complexity in every stone. A city sacred to multiple traditions, it drew pilgrims who arrived exhausted from long journeys, each carrying different meanings of the same place. For some, it was the center of divine promise. For others, a city under their own religious and political world. For those living there, it was home, shaped by governance, trade, and the constant need to adapt. What followed in the years after 1096 would not simply be a clash between two worlds. but a long and uneven transformation of both. Knowledge, architecture, and trade would continue to cross boundaries even as armies fought over them. Ideas would travel where borders tried to stop them, and fear would often move faster than truth. Looking back, it becomes clear that this was never a story of two separate civilizations standing still against each other. It was a single interconnected world under stress, where contact never stopped, but where trust slowly eroded under the weight of ambition, belief, and survival. And in that fragile balance, history began to change shape. Islam began to fall.